I wanted to bring something up related to stories and maybe even unbelievable, and this can maybe tie in with the Elon stuff. Because like the first thing I thought what went through my brain when I heard 5 years best, 10 years worst was, I don't believe that. That seems so ridiculous. Mm-hmm. Now, I don't know shit about rockets. I don't know shit about space exploration. I've never built a rocket myself, so I will...
This comes with a slice of absolutely knowing nothing?
Yeah, I'll slightly defer... like, one of the things I would just say in support of my argument is that he's kind of notorious for...
Big, bold
claims, which, predicting something and he'll be off target by 3 years, say, for example. So that's just one of the reasons where I'm like, okay. Of course, he's going to talk it up. He's the owner of SpaceX. Yeah. He wants people to be interested, put money into it, have faith in it, etc. But anyway, so this relates to stories. And so I was thinking of... there's 3 reasons that brought this up. 2 reasons were books I've read recently. One was the Paul Carter book. I've already forgotten the stupid clickbait title name. Don't tell my mom I work on the rig. She thinks I'm a piano player in a whorehouse. Mm-hmm. Now, aside from the clickbait title, there's a lot of stories in there which are like, fuck off. No way. No way. You blew up a monkey because you put a firework in a coconut, rolled it down the hill, and it chased after it. Or the monkey trapped him in this room, and so he had to like literally rip the door off its hinges to be able to get out. Sort of things like that.
I could believe that.
There's just plenty of things where it's like...
Yeah, there's an amalgamation of stories there that you go, okay,
and there's
one
so
of these,
many, like,
if one of these is a little bit
them.
like over the top, what to say, and not the other ones are over the top.
So there's that one. There's one I'm currently reading, which is called Nathaniel's Nutmeg, and this was also a Oscar Murray recommendation. Nutmeg. And this is basically, I think it's about the Dutch East India Trading Company. Mm-hmm. So it's about the spice wars, how the British and the Spanish and the Portuguese and the Dutch were all vying for nutmeg, cloves, spices like that, which the rich people would use back in those days to hide the gross flavor of rancid meat and things like that. And also it had, they believed it had medicinal properties. Maybe it still does. I don't know that much about nutmeg, but it would cure headaches, stop bowel movement, stop flatulence, all those sorts of
properties
things.
to it.
Yep. And in some of these stories, that it's explorers going to the India, Philippines, to across the world. They're literally getting on a boat, leaving home, coming back. If they come back 3 years later, and they'll be telling stories about how they met Africans and they were putting blood, tripe and entrails around their necks, eating it raw, and all this shit. And the people back at home were like, "You're full of shit, mate. That never happened. That story's BS." And then they go there themselves and they're like, holy fuck,
this is real.
There's this crazy shit going on. And then the last one was your New Year's Eve, where you did something where I was like, what the fuck, man? What kind of story is that?
If I told you that story at another time and without proof, I think you would have been like, hold on a moment.
Yeah.
This sounds like
BS.
one BS.
Yeah. And it's not appropriate for the podcast, so I won't get into it. But I've had 1 or 2 stories myself where I was like, holy shit, I did this thing, or this thing happened, but... it's so hard to believe it. People will think you're bragging. People will think you're full of stuff. So my question was, of all the stories that have been told throughout history, which have been told in the sense of this thing actually happened, how much do you think of it is truth? How much of it is like outright lies, and how much would be a grey area in between where someone has a kernel of truth but they've embellished it? What percentage of stories told throughout all stories told throughout history? So this is sort of asking a question about humanity and our propensity to embellish, or maybe not embellish, if you believe we're all straight shooters.
All right. So my belief, and let me just think this through to make sure it's the right one, not a system one telling me that. But no, I would have to say that complete and utter lies. I'm going to put percentages here. Complete and utter lies, where it's just it didn't happen at all, and it's just literally a fictition of someone's sort of mindset or brain power coming out with some idea. 5%.
Okay.
Truth, nothing but the truth, and absolute just pristine exactly what happened. 5%.
Yeah.
And then I would give 90% to grey, of taking the truth and extrapolating it to some degree, not to a full lie, but to some extravagant or otherwise imprecise version of what actually was the truth. And I would say that there's probably a combination of one, just like forgetfulness. I think a majority of that, of like retelling a story and just faulty memory, or let's give the example of jurors or a jury or someone who's going to go witnesses or 5 people. There is a reason they don't grab witnesses, they don't allow witnesses to have conversations pre a jury case or the actual case. It's because you might say, oh yeah, I saw this person and they were
wearing a red coat.
Yeah, they were wearing a red coat, and all of a sudden, even though you can't recall that, it's like put into your memory, and then that's what you say. So I think this, and I'll even go down further. Of the 90%, I'm saying in the grey area, I'm going to say, I'm going to give humanity a little bit here. I'm going to say 50% of the time of that 90%. So if you're doing your maths here, 45%. I'm saying 45% of humanity extrapolate or go beyond the actual truth, but not of their own wanting. It is just a fault of the human coding that we just are forgetful sometimes, or we might just recollect things in an inappropriate way. And then another 45% where you just pull out just a little bit extra just to make it fun, just like the stories that you're talking about, where it's like, yeah, is that really real, or did you write it in this way just because it would be of interest to more people? Or you thought, like a lot of people do, that the story's not as interesting, I need to embellish a little, I need to add a little sparkle to it just so that people really care about it.
Yeah, okay.
What about you?
Yeah, no, very similar. I would have, if I have to describe it in a nutshell, I'd say a shifted bell curve. So it's roughly a bell curve, but it's been slightly shifted more towards the believing in humanity, trying to be truthful area. So I would say, reasons people would tell stories. One is they're just straight up psychopaths or manipulators or things like that, and so they'll just tell whatever story, take other people's stories and pass it off as their own, sort of thing like that. Consciously lying and doing that, I think there would be, I'll maybe put a slightly smaller percent, maybe like 2 or 3%, where they're consciously lying and knowing that if gun to head is this 50% more true or 50% less true, like that border point of saying
more true.
that'd be that. No, it would be they consciously know it's less true. They consciously know.
Okay.
Then I would say it starts to curve up gradually, where yes, it's sort of built on a lie, but it's also struggling to. It's getting gradually towards more the truth. So there'll be a kernel of truth. So there's a seed of
something there.
There's something happened. They went to they saw a gorilla at the zoo. The gorilla did a backflip. Maybe it didn't do a backflip, but it did some sort of weird movement where it
kind of flopped on its back.
Yeah. So I think there would be parts of that, and then it would get towards, people are telling a story. 75% of it's true, but 25% of it is just. You add extra details, and this is where it's sort of truth but untruth at the same time. The dolphin looked me in the eye, and it had like a magical sparkle. Like I could see the twinkle in its eye.
You could tell it was going to come and be friendly.
Yeah, things like that. And
see,
and
is that an untruth though? Is that realistically not a truth? To a story?
I just want to say embellishment. It's something where it's not a.
That's not a known state. That's a known fact of what happened.
Yeah, it's you adding your opinion onto it.
Exactly.
And whilst your opinion might be true, and that's what you actually believe. Hey, I actually did see that ghost. Hey, I actually whatever. There are certain things where it's like, that's I'm unsure about that.
Well, actually, it's an interesting thing. One of the things I wrote.
Sorry, and then the last bit was that bell curve right at the tippy point. Probably like another 1% of just 2% of people who are super autistic and just they don't even know how to tell a story. It's just they blurt it out. Yeah,
hear the facts.
Yeah.